In this video, we're going to go over the basics of getting your survey data prepared and processed so you can engage in analysis. The datasheet that I have displayed on my screen now is available for downloads at the link in the comments, so please download that and work through this data with me. To start with, it's a good idea to inspect your data and have a look and make sure you're familiar with it. This datasheet measures the three aspects of the dark triad: Machiavellianism, narcissism and psychopathy, and then something called Facebook surveillance, the tendency for someone to spy on others using Facebook. And we're going to see if those three traits correlate with that tendency. If I click on variable view, you can see that these on the left are the items, the abbreviated labels that I've given them, and then the label in the middle has the actual items themselves. And I would always recommend that you put some kind of meaningful label in the label column, usually the item if it's a scale. So you can say this is the Machiavellianism 1 item, it's not wise to tell your secrets, or something else meaningful, as we'll see later, so you know what a particular column is telling you should you leave your data alone for a while and then come back to it, or if someone else is looking at your data, you need to be able to pick it back up and know what's going on with it. So you can see here we've got the Machiavellianism items, and these are the actual items participants were asked, the narcissism items, the psychopathy items, and then the Facebook surveillance items. And these were a new scale created for this research project, and then these are pre-existing scales. So first of all, with survey data, it's a good idea to check the responses that participants have made and make sure that they're all okay. What I would recommend is going up to Analyze, Descriptives, Frequencies, and putting all of your variables into the right hand column here. So they normally start here, and I've transferred them in already. And then click OK. Now we get a big load of output here. What we're looking for is anything odd. So to start with, age. Okay, so that could be any number. You can see already that I've got 3 participants here who are under 18. So if that is a problem for your sample, you might want to locate those participants and delete them. You can also see at the bottom here that someone has answered this question as 910 years old. Now this could be a typo, or it could be someone messing about. And it's a good idea to look for slightly strange responses like that. It might be worth deleting that participant, as perhaps what they've written isn't very representative. They might not have been taking it seriously. Then we move down, we can see the gender. Now in this particular sample we only coded for male and female participants, and you can see the number of each, that's fine. Then if we look down at the response to different scales, all of these items were on the same response scale, disagree strongly to agree strongly, and you can see that everyone has responded to all of them. Now if someone hasn't responded to a particular item, it will say missing, and then the number of participants that have missed that item. You can see here that everyone has responded as they should have. There's no missing ones, which is good. It can also be good just to make sure there's a bit of a spread here, just very quickly, just eyeballing the data. If when you look through, people have only ticked 2 of the responses, then there might be a problem with that item, but this is just eyeballing the data. So just looking through, no one has missed anything, so that's good. If participants have missed responses, there are varying schools of thought about what to do about that. You might just want to delete that participant, but you can also see how much of the items they've missed out, and if it's not too many you can leave them in. That's really a conversation for another video, but if you're spoiled for the number of participants you've got, it's usually just simplest to delete anyone that's missing anything. If your sample's starting to get a bit dangerously small, then you might need to think about some alternatives. So just looking at my data, it all looks okay. Everyone's responded as they should. Potentially problems with these participants being too young, and this one maybe not taking things seriously. I'm going to leave them in my sample for now, but I could, if this was a real research project, I probably would delete them, or at least inspect their responses. So our first task with any survey data, once we're happy with the responses we've got on the sample, is to reverse code any items that need reverse coding. Now what that means is looking for any items that are the opposite way to the others in that scale. What we generally want is that a high score on a particular item means a high level of that trait. So if we look here, Machiavellianism 1, it's not wise to tell your secrets. That's not a very good item actually. Let's do Mac 2. I like to use clever manipulation to get my way. That's really the essence of Machiavellianism. So we would say if someone strongly agreed with that, okay, so a 5, they would be very Machiavellianist. And so that makes sense. And if they scored no, if they said they strongly disagree with that, they probably wouldn't be very Machiavellianist. So we want all of the items to be like that. A high score means a high level of that particular trait. It just makes intuitive sense. If we look down the items here in the Machiavellianism scale, you can see that they are all like that apart from this last one. Most people are hard to manipulate. Now we would say that if someone strongly agreed with that, number 5, they probably don't have a high level of Machiavellianism. They probably don't think that it's easy to manipulate and plot with people. So that one's out of kilter. That one is going to mess things up when we come to average participants' responses to all these items and create an overall Machiavellianism score. So we need to deal with that. We need to sort that one out. Now, if you're using pre-existing scales, the authors of those scales will often tell you which ones need to be reverse coded. But here, I want you to inspect the items yourself so you can see how it works. So that one needs to be reverse coded. All the others are okay. So we'll do that now. We go up to transform, recode into same variables, and put the variable that we're interested in there. So it's this one at the bottom. Most people are hard to manipulate. Put that in there. Then we go to old or new values. So we just want to flip them. We tell SPSS, sorry, these are ones from when I was getting this data sheet prepared, so just ignore those. So we tell SPSS we want a 1 to be a 5. We want a 2 to be a 4. 3 is in the middle in this response scale, so that will just stay the same. I'll just put that in there for clarity's sake. A 4 will become a 2, and a 5 will become a 1. So before we do that, let's look at a participant on this particular item. Okay, so let's have a look at the data sheet just so you can see this before we actually do it. So item Machiavellianism 9, most people are hard to manipulate. And we can see here, this person's put a 1. They strongly disagree, okay? That means they are high in Machiavellianism, okay? They disagree with that. They think people are easy to manipulate, so they are very high in Machiavellianism. Okay, so let's have a look at their next response here. The previous response, sorry. So Machiavellianism 8. Make sure your plans benefit yourself, not others. They've strongly agreed with that, so they're consistent with them being high in Machiavellianism. But you can see that doesn't make sense. They scored a 5 for that one, and they're high in Machiavellianism, but a 1 on that one and they're high in Machiavellianism. So that doesn't make sense. Those are incompatible because we know that Machiavellianism 9 is the weird one, that it's round the wrong way. So we're going to reverse code that now. Okay, so recode into same variables. Okay, I think it's reset from when I did it before. Most people are hard to manipulate. Old and new values, yeah, it's reset. So we'll just do that again. So we know that a 1 strongly disagree with that, meaning a high level of Machiavellianism. That actually needs to be a 5. A 2 needs to be a 4. 3 doesn't change. We don't actually need to enter 3. 4 becomes a 2. And 5 becomes a 1. And then we click continue and OK. And SPSS has done it all for us. Nothing else appears here apart from just telling us what it's done. If we go back to the data sheet, you can see now this person who, participant 1, high level of Machiavellianism for that item, and they've got a high score, and that is consistent with their response on item 8. They've strongly agreed with that, high level of Machiavellianism, high score on that, higher level of Machiavellianism. And so that makes sense. That's perfect. So that's done. That's the Machiavellianism scale done. Now we need to look down the other items in the other scales and see if anything needs reverse coding there. I would suggest pausing now and looking down the narcissism scale, that's narcissism 1 to 13, and see if you can identify any that need reverse coding there. So let's just pause for a second, pause the video, and then play again when you've had a look down and identified any. Okay, so hopefully you've looked down and realised that none of them need reverse coding. For all of them, a high score, if we just take one at random, I like looking at myself in the mirror, high score, high level of narcissism. I will never be satisfied until I get all that I deserve. High score, high level of narcissism. So none of those need changing. We're done there. Okay, so let's look at the psychopathy scale. Same thing again. Pause the video and have a look and see if you can identify the ones that need reverse coding. Okay, so hopefully you've had a look through those and you can see there are 2 that need reverse coding. Psycho 2, I avoid dangerous situations, and Psycho 7, I have never gotten into trouble with the law. For both of those, strongly agreeing would indicate low levels of psychopathy. Again, it wouldn't really make sense. For all the others, strongly agreeing, I like to get revenge on authorities, payback needs to be quick and nasty, high score, high level of that trait. So we need to reverse code 2 and 7. Now don't worry if the items that I'm pointing out as being reverse coded, needing reverse coding, you can't really see why that is. Hopefully it makes sense, but as I say, the authors of scales will usually tell you which items need reverse coding. They usually directly tell you, or they will put an R in brackets after the item, so you shouldn't have to work it out, but I'm making it more difficult here as this is a tutorial. But hopefully you can see how that works. So let's reverse code those. We go up to transform, recode into same variables, we get rid of the Machiavellianism one. Okay, we've done that one, and we're doing psychopathy 2 and psychopathy 7. Okay, now we can do both at once, and in fact we could have done Machiavellianism as well because they're all on the same response scale. So for all of these items we're flipping them. Now if they were on different response scales we'd have to do them all separately, but because of that, every single one is on 1 to 5, it's already done for us. Okay, so that's done and dusted. We don't need to input the values again. We're happy with that. We click OK. Again, it tells us what it's done. And again, the items are switched. It's not noticeable. If you look at the data sheet, you can't see any difference, but that is now done. Finally, we need to look at the Facebook surveillance scale. And again, pause the video and see if you can identify the item. Okay, so hopefully you identified that the one that needs reverse coding is this one, SPSS. Facebook isn't a useful resource when trying to gather information on others. So we would expect that if someone strongly agreed with that, they don't really engage in Facebook surveillance, whereas all the others, strong agreement means that they do. So that's the one we need to flip. Exactly the same as before. Transform, recode into same variables, get rid of the old ones. Facebook 5, again, we could have put Machiavellianism 9, psychopathy 2 and 7, and this one in all at once at the start. But because we've already flipped those previous ones, we have to move them out, otherwise they'll just flip back to normal and it won't make sense. So we're just doing them all separately, but they're all on the same response scale, so you could have done them all at the same time. Again, 1 to 5, 5 to 1 is already done. Continue, OK, and that's done. And that's your data sheet done. Your data sheet has now been successfully reverse coded and everything, and checked as well, so you checked it as well, using the frequencies command, and now we can move on to checking the reliability of the items. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please subscribe if you did, and click on the link on the screen now to be taken to the next video in this series.